Okay, awesome. I am live. Let's start painting this thing. Hi, everyone. Hello. Hi, friends. Welcome. So I just wanted to give an introduction. I'm a biz dev artist. I mostly specialize in like color illustration, props, environments, that kind of stuff. So today I'm going to be working on this very pumpkin-filled trellis that a bunch of people are going to be sitting in, and I have this really quick 3D block-in that I made. Yeah, let me show you the 3D really quick because this is kind of fun. So I use Blender mostly. Blender is pretty awesome. And I kind of like lit my scene. You can see there's like a really bright light over here. I made these like really primitive tubes and like really simple spheres and stuff like that for the pumpkins. And then I kind of just thought about composition in here. Like I knew I wanted it to be a big tube kind of like on the left third. And then I kind of just like played with the camera until I got something I liked. But yeah, so this is really fun to use. Also, let me know if you guys have any questions or if the sound is really bad or anything like that, and I can try and troubleshoot during the stream. So yeah, this is kind of the 3D I start with. I don't always use 3D, but I felt like this one would be a fun exercise just because of how simple the objects are. And then I also put together a mood board. So I usually do this when there's like going to be a lot of architecture because it's really good to have. Oh yeah, let me turn the mic up. Is that a little better? Maybe let's see now. Is that better? I hope so. Let me know if it's still too quiet though. Maybe I just need to be closer to it. This is my first time streaming, so this is really fun. So yeah, these are kind of the references I've been looking at, and I use this program called PureRef. It's really convenient. You can like drop in a ton of random sized files, and then basically you just like align stuff really nicely. So it's really fast for making mood boards. I think it's either free or you can donate to them. But yeah, so I was looking at all these like kind of Victorian really cool conservatories and greenhouses. Oh, it looks like everyone says louder, so let's see. I'll just keep turning it up. But don't worry, this is recorded, so if you miss anything, I'm gonna put it on YouTube later. Yeah, so I really like this giant trellis. This is insane. This is like some Tudor castle. And it just has plants growing all over it, which is amazing. So yeah, I was gonna try and emulate some of this architecture when I'm actually painting it. And then I was also looking at these botanical gardens from when I went to Copenhagen. They are amazing. Look at this tree growing at the top. It's so cool. So yeah, I was gonna show you how I just start by, usually I put some perspective layers on. I'm using this program called Perspective Tools 2. It's really helpful. You can get it on Gumroad, and it's really helpful for, it's like way easier than doing the whole shape tool and like making a big grid and moving that around. So yeah, start with that. I got my 2-point perspective in here. And then I usually put a white layer on top, just like kind of like how you would use tracing paper. And then I just start drawing. So what I was going to start doing is drawing the character over here on the left. Also, I might be moved away from the mic, so just let me know if I need to yell. Yeah, for all 3 days, I'm going to just be working on this painting, and like basically the first day I want to show you how I do an initial sketch, and turn like the 3D block-in into something a little more designed and less sterile. And then probably the next day will be more like lighting and block-in, and then the third day will be like rendering and final polish. And thank you for answering questions in the chat. A lot of people might be missing these little programs and like plugins and stuff that I have. So this painting I'm working on is going with my personal project called the Botanical Academy, and it's just about a girl who's like a new kid in this magical school. She doesn't really have very good powers, and it's kind of just like a coming of age witch academy story. But I'm working on writing a graphic novel for that. I haven't announced anything yet, but one day. It's a work in progress. So I'm just starting off with like, this is like a dining hall. It's meant to be like a very autumn scene. Like middle of September, like getting close to autumn. Wishful thinking because it's really hot in LA. And I'm just kind of like, I'm using some of the 3D, but I'm definitely gonna be changing, just, you know, everything's kind of sterile in 3D, and so I'm gonna be working on turning everything into like very natural and organic. I'm gonna try to answer everyone's questions as I see them too. And yes, this is using Blender. So I use Blender quite a bit, not for every composition, but like definitely things where I already kind of know what kind of framing I want. Like I knew this would be a cafeteria scene, and so it was pretty easy to just block in some tables and be like, okay, where do I want the character to sit? Trying something else with these benches. I'm thinking kind of like almost like a little filigree pattern in between, but it might not even, nobody might even see it. And so I feel like it's pretty important to like quickly block in where the character is going to be, and also like the overall shapes. So I'm usually starting with like blobs and stuff like that. And so this painting, I kind of wanted to have like new kid vibes. So she's kind of like by herself, like with all her food, and there's like a lot of people around, but then all the perspective lines and stuff are kind of pointing at her by herself, and then there will be like a lot of people over here. Yeah, someone asked about not copying too much of your reference. For me, it would be pretty hard to copy exactly because I'm trying to stylize things like whenever possible. So like for example, if I see this greenhouse here, I'm not going to use these exact shapes. Like maybe I want a way taller roof to exaggerate how tall it is, or I like exaggerate the filigree on these windows, like these little designs and stuff. But yeah, I'm always just like looking at it, but trying not to copy directly, because I don't know, it's always good to see what your unique take is on things. And you might also see me like pop in and out and get reference and things like that. That's just ongoing. It's like I don't ever just look for reference and then like, oh, that's it. I feel like there's always more stuff to look up depending on the scene and depending on how complex it is. Oh yeah, I will talk about what I use to find reference though. I don't know if you guys have heard of DuckDuckGo. It's a search engine that doesn't steal your cookies. It's pretty great actually. So I've set that as my default search engine, and then like when you're searching, you don't get so many like Getty images and like stock photos and stuff like that. And so right now I'm kind of trying to think of the character's gesture. I kind of want her to look like a little sad, like a little lonely, because she's new kid, like by herself. So I'm kind of giving her like a shoulder hunch, maybe dropping her right shoulder. And I really like to use these Shein Kim's sketch brushes. They're really nice. They have like a nice chalkiness. It's like got a nice angle. Kind of reminds me of using like charcoal. One thing I was like really confused about is if I wanted the kids in the academy to have witch hats, but I think I have decided on something else. But I don't know. I'm not really sure how everyone feels about witch hats these days. I still feel like they're super cute. And I'm just kind of like, all I really go for is like the brow line and then like figure out general nose height and stuff like that. But I definitely don't want to work too long on just one thing while I'm blocking it in. Oh no, do you ever get that when your Photoshop just like lags while you're trying to draw? It's like my life. So I kind of want her body turned a little bit. And I'm kind of like erasing out of my gesture too as I go. So what I like to do is kind of draw everything pretty loosely, just to get a like overall gesture of the scene and like character placement and stuff like that. So I'm gonna just kind of draw blob people just at the right scale. So the main reason I used Blender just for this scene is I knew I wanted like all of these circles to go back in space, and all of these circles are kind of the same size. So that gives me like a perspective clue of like, okay, if this circle is this big, then it gets a little smaller and then a little smaller. I'm probably going to exaggerate it a little bit, but it also kind of gives me a hint for how I'm going to be drawing all of the people, because then their scale and the size changes are going to be kind of consistent. And this is a pretty big scene because I just realized I'm going to have to draw a bazillion people, but that's okay. So the scene looks like really tight in Blender right now, but the goal for me is to do this a little bit looser when I'm actually painting it, which seems counterintuitive to start this rigid, but it's kind of like starting with a perspective grid that has a little more information. So somebody asked if I usually go straight to Blender. No, not always. I sometimes like to do a really quick sketch, which I can show you later, like how loose I sometimes start. Like sometimes it'll even just be like something like in my head, this is kind of what I was imagining, of like you have a tunnel with like some foreground leaves for perspective cue, and then you kind of like, the main character would be sitting here, and then I knew I wanted like a lot of detail, but kind of just repetitive detail, because these are all just like a bunch of pumpkins on a trellis, and then I would have like lots of people, and so I knew that would be kind of the overall composition, is like basically a tunnel composition. So in my head, I kind of knew that going in, and then I just built in 3D accordingly, basically. Hi, Elaine. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry if I don't see your names fast enough. It's kind of hard to read a chat and paint at the same time. I have a lot of respect for Twitch streamers. Yeah, I was debating on if I want to put anyone else sitting at her table or not, but I don't think I will. Just to like kind of really emphasize that she's by herself. But yeah, I'm just kind of blocking in the overall groupings of like where I'm gonna want other people. And now I'm zooming out, I'm like wondering, maybe I should scale the people up just a little bit. So this is what I mean by starting like extremely loose. Like I'm not like really attached to my line work. Like you can see like my line work is like all different sizes all over the place. But yeah, I usually don't really care about that stuff too much in the beginning. It's just about getting it blocked in. Cool, and then let me pull up my reference really quick because I was gonna look at what these pumpkin leaves look like. So these are super cool. So pumpkin leaves are really like cute and intricate. Like they have all these nice little shapes on them. And then I just love the lighting of this photo. Like all the really bright green shining through and then the crisp rim light and all that. So I'm just keeping this up in the other screen, but I wanted to show you just how cute pumpkins are. Everyone loves pumpkins. Oh, someone asked if I do more keyframe illustration than props. At work, I actually do quite a bit of props and also character surfacing and like environment design in general. For my personal work, just because I've been developing a story, I really like to do keyframe illustrations just because it's more fun and I kind of have an internal library of all the different like props I've done at work and things like that. So I don't worry too much these days about like supplementing my portfolio with that, but it's definitely something that they look for in a portfolio to get a job. But there is something to be said about like if you can do a keyframe illustration that has a lot of props in it and like you know, it has a lot of detail, like this is eventually going to have a ton of pumpkins and like food on the tables and things like that. Those are technically props kind of mixed in with the environment, but you know, like it still shows lighting, form, all that stuff. I would say the one thing where it can get tricky is if you're doing like really graphic or really like story, or just like, you know, a story beat illustration where it's just like the sky and like the ground and like some characters, then it might be a little hard to see if you can also do props. But it's still like, you know, if you can render a character's forms, like people might be able to interpret that you can also render a prop, if that makes sense. And so I'm trying to draw, I'm thinking all these pumpkins, there's also going to be like gourds and stuff too. So there'll be like kind of a mix of different shapes and colors. Yes, thank you for answering the keyframe illustrations thing. Pretty much exactly that. The reason we do keyframe illustrations is to kind of like convey the whole mood of a scene, and also like for pitches or for like internal green lighting of a show and things like that. There's a lot of reasons we do keyframe illustrations. A lot of it is like kind of like the proof of picture. So it like just shows you like what is the movie going to look like in just one shot. especially like a shot of action and like with full lighting and all that. Ooh, you know what? I should draw the wireframe of the trellis. So I'm going to do that on a new layer. And I was thinking kind of like bringing it in a little bit. And this is why I have this little quick perspective grid on here. Thinking maybe it's an arch like this. And that's the nice thing is like I'm not bound to the 3D, so if I decide I want to change the boundaries of things, like if I don't want this trellis to be quite as compact, I can just like change it and it's no big deal. Sometimes my Photoshop freezes when I change brushes, so if you see me like Alt tab really quick, that's why. And I really like some of the elements of that giant trellis because it's so giant that there's, you know, there needs to be architectural soundness to it. Like for example, if you just made like a normal trellis and scaled it up, it's probably not going to look right, but this has like all these little architecture details that make it look like it could all really work. Yeah, so I'm just kind of referencing this again in my mind. And then a nice thing about my perspective grid is now I can just kind of guess where I want some of the main beams. Realizing it's a little bit wrong though. I use 3D, so sometimes there's like a little bit of a warp on things. No matter, we have warp tool, we're good. And yeah, so most of this is going to be covered by plants, but I just kind of wanted to like figure out what it looks like underneath, so that I do want to like kind of show that there's some kind of architecture underneath, even if it gets covered. I probably will end up kind of drawing out the whole thing underneath just so that it's not so like mushy, if that makes sense, and then I'll just like paint the leaves on top of it. Cool, so I'm just making sure my composition like still works when I've added the architecture, and I was just gonna scoot her over. Yeah, so people were asking how I got my first job and then also what kinds of things you do. So my first job was at Real Effects. My portfolio was mostly story beat illustrations because those were kind of the needs of the show at the time. They were still kind of in pre-production, so they were doing a lot of blue sky work. But then for the most recent show I'm on, they asked if I had more specific prop designs, so then I showed them work I had done for other shows, like for Scooby-Doo, for example. But yeah, so the way I got my first job was mostly story beat illustrations, but there were a few, like I did a few architecture designs, and I did a whole like Great Gatsby visual development project. And yeah, so I basically designed all the architecture of that world as well as some of the props, a little bit of characters, but that wasn't really what was needed. They just kind of wanted to see that I could paint characters like in a scene. Yeah, I was very much a junior, so I was doing a lot of quick color keys and like story beat illustrations, and also doing like prop designs and environment designs for the world. And then, yeah, let's see, what else? At Paramount, I did a lot of pretty much the same, like lots of environment designs, but we were in production, so it was like really tight, clean ones, specifically for the 3D modelers. And I can show you, let's see, my website is listed at the bottom of this Twitch stream. It's underneath my Instagram and my Twitter. You can find my website, and all my Scoob art is on there, which you can kind of see the actual things I had to do at work. The pumpkins are not going to be glowy, but there are going to be lights around them. And hopefully the sunlight shining through the leaves feels like really magical and glowy. But yeah, there's also going to be little fairy lights. Okay, cool. So I just turned these sketches down because these are just like reference sketches. I use fill instead of opacity just out of habit, because fill can sometimes look better with the blending mode layers. More on that later. But yeah, I just like fill for some reason. Okay, so now I'm going to be thinking about her pose. Back to her, since she's kind of the focal point. I might have to like do this pose to figure out what it's like, which is very weird to do on stream, but this is like what I would do in real life. Okay, so it's actually shoulder more up on the other side. I really hope I don't start like making the face that she's making or something. Okay, sorry, I went focus mode for a sec. Let me read some questions really quick. Okay, no, we're good. I'm caught up. And I'll probably redraw her alone like a bazillion times, just because that's the nature of like getting the pose right. The background characters probably won't be quite as detailed. They'll be like backs of heads and like cheat ways basically to hide their faces. But of course you can't get away with hiding all of their faces, so I'm definitely gonna be painting a few of them. And I was thinking like a typical like anxious new kid. She probably like doesn't have too much breakfast, just like maybe like some cereal she's not eating. This is from experience. This is not a judgment. This is, I've been there. So yeah, the school is like a little magical boarding school and nature conservatory. So it's kind of like saving your local ecosystem and also new kid story all rolled into one, which is pretty fun. Plus magical boarding school, which everyone loves. Oh yeah, Viz Dev and concept art is really like, I feel like it's really just the terminology is different, but they're kind of a similar job, just for different things. Like biz dev is really for animation, and then people say concept art is more for live action and video games. And yeah, that's really the only difference. But biz dev artists, especially in animation and for feature, are expected to be more not generalist as in doing 3D and also doing like VFX, but like doing you can also do character surfacing, you can do prop design, but you can also render the props. You can do environment design, but you can also do story beat painting. So they do kind of expect you to know a lot of things, just because the teams are usually smaller, and we don't really like hire people based on like specifics. Like there's not usually like a one prop designer on the film. It's like everyone kind of does a little props. Yeah, I would say the only kind of niche category can be color keys. But even then, like most color key artists are going to be expected to like also do rendering and things like that. So yeah. Let's see, somebody asked about getting better at color keys. I would say a really good way both to like build a library of color palettes in your brain and also just get quick at rendering is doing film studies. Yeah, there's some really good websites out there where you can get like really cinematic shots. There's ShotDeck.com, which is really great. And then there's also FilmGrab, which is film-grab.com. I've used both of those, and you don't even have to post them. Like, don't feel pressured to like post them to Instagram just for like, look, I did a study, or like, look, I did work. But just be like, you can do it for yourself, or if you want to post them, feel free. But yeah, I think it's a really good way of learning quick color lighting, and also just seeing like what compositions you are drawn to. Like I'm for sure a big like central composition, like frame the main character in a tiny hole kind of person. As you can see, this one's not really central, but it's like I just really like a tiny person with like a giant environment. But yeah, you can like kind of learn what kind of shots you really like if you like really crazy perspective, or maybe you like that crazy like aerial shot kind of thing. Oh yeah, please link any tutorials and things that other people could find useful. I'm like really probably not a good resource for learning Photoshop because I learned it when I was like pretty young. I would go on Neopets and draw my Neopets in Photoshop. So I learned it when I was like, I learned it from like clicking every button that exists in this program, and just kind of like experimenting. But when you are on a time crunch, it's way better to like watch a tutorial of like, hey, this is how you specifically do exactly what you need to do. So, you know, you don't have just like years to sit there on Neopets like I did. But yeah, I'm trying to remember how I learned to digitally paint for concept art. I had some really amazing mentors in college, Eitan Zana and Nick Gendreau, also Alex Neonakis. So I mostly learned to paint from them. And I think they mostly, I don't know who they learned from, but we definitely looked at like the Alla Prima books and things like that. It's kind of like the technique. Okay. Let's see. Almost ready to just start painting. The biggest chore is gonna be painting all the leaves, but I have some fun secrets of how to do that quickly because I'm not gonna paint every single leaf, and you will see how. I do a lot of copy pasting of my own paint strokes, you know, like I'll paint a little section and then I'll copy paste it somewhere else, but in a way that looks more like naturalistic. That's been kind of my go-to for doing these complex biz dev scenes, because otherwise there would be no time. Okay, so I'm happy I made this 3D model, but it's for sure like not exactly how a bench would work. Like we probably need something in the middle, maybe some central, hold on one sec, maybe some little central supports. So I'm gonna start drawing those right here. And I'm kind of just like eyeballing the perspective, but like thinking like, oh, this goes to this, you know what I mean? And then this comes down. So I might not be drawing it for you to see, but I'm thinking about it in my brain. So I would say for a general rule of thumb in your portfolio, depending on what you want to go into, I would definitely, like if you want to go into character specific, definitely have character turns, which is, you know, drawing the same character front, back, 3/4. Actually on the show I've been working on, we mostly just do front 3/4, back 3/4, and then including for props and architecture, we just do 2 3/4 views, which is a life-changing, like really nice, instead of having to do like top, front, back, you know, it takes way less time and it's actually easier for like a VizDev 3D modeler to look at. So yeah, but for characters, definitely turns, definitely expressions, outfits, costuming, making sure you know, like look up what clothing is actually being worn in the period that you're working on. I feel like a good character designer always has good mood boards, like really good like reference they've collected, whether it's of animals or people. That's super important. I'm trying to think of like a central shape that I want to repeat. I know I want them to be like gothic, kind of filigree like this. Maybe even like wrought iron. This might be one of those things we gotta reference. Luckily, I think I have some. Normally I look at, let's see, I'll show you guys how I search. So I'm using DuckDuckGo as my default, and then let's see. So sometimes this gets us where we need to be. Not really feeling any of these because they're all wood carved. I was thinking more of like wrought iron, so maybe Victorian. Yeah, you know, kind of like this stuff. Like wrought iron filigree. I don't know if there's a better word for that. If you know one, please let me know. Yeah, I would say for a VizDev portfolio, for to be like a VizDev generalist, I would say definitely lots of color paintings, because those are always great and necessary, and just shows that you could probably do color keys, skies, rendering, all those things. But then also do prop designs that aren't just like, you know, like a fork or like a sandwich, like really make them exciting. Like think of like hero props, like from a video game, like I don't know, like a puzzle box or a magical chest or something like that. Try and design things like that are like really exciting. Because on the show, you'll definitely have to design kind of more run-of-the-mill props. Like I've had to design like markers or like a trash pile. But in your portfolio, I would definitely recommend doing something that excites you. And then on top of that, I would definitely do some architectural designs. I think a good balance of line drawing and rendered stuff is really good because we do a lot of line drawing. Like a lot of times my model packets for the 3D modelers will have like a line drawing of the objects just for an explanation, but then also like the completely rendered items as well. Someone saw the Stardew Valley folder. I have to keep a log of all the items my villagers love because like they're so complex. Back to BizDev. Yes. What else to have in a portfolio? I would definitely recommend if you like character surfacing, maybe like doing some rendered versions of a character you've designed or a friend's designed. I've been doing a lot of surfacing for like creatures and animals, which is actually not something I had in my portfolio, but something like I've had bosses take a chance and just let me try it out based on my other rendering skills. So that's been really nice. Maybe I should draw this flat first. Have you guys tried the symmetry tool? It's kind of amazing. Let's see. I'm thinking of like, I like to do kind of like floral patterns, but not exactly like flowery, you know, just kind of like swoopy and like intricate. Oh yeah, architecture, that's a fun one. So the best way I learned architecture was I would just kind of sketch. I would find reference and then I would sketch like a stylized version of that. And then what I do is I would look up, there's an old architectural painter called Canaletto, but look up those sketches that he would do before getting to the final painting because they're super loose. Like when he draws a window, it's like a U, you know, or a little box. And so like the same with drawing figures, like come up with little shortcuts for yourself, like figure out the fast way to draw a window, figure out the fast way to draw a door, or the archways of things or domed roofs. I also like to design in orthographic when I'm doing architecture designs, and then once I like the silhouette and like overall proportions, then I might either warp it or start over with the same proportions and do like a 3/4 view. But yeah, the best way that I got faster at learning architecture was doing a lot of studies of real world architecture. I took Nick Gendreau's class and he went over, like basically you picked like Mayan architecture and you would do your own stylized version of it. And then you would make up your own buildings based on what you learned from the architecture. And what that teaches you is just like all architectural styles have like a visual language, whether that's pyramids or domed roofs or super sloped roofs, or even curved roofs and things like that. Yeah, there's like always those little visual languages in architecture, and learning what makes up every different type of architecture is really, really helpful. Let's see, does that look like it could support it? Maybe. We'll just go with that, and then I can always redesign it later. Yes, I'm recording this, so I'm gonna try and put it on YouTube later. Okay, so I'm just using this kind of like reference sketch. Oh, I need to copy it. And I'm just using free transform to warp it where I want it to be. And then I'm gonna just like redraw it and make it look more natural. Oh, I use Command or Control H, and that like hides all of the extras, which is really nice if you're trying to not look at the marching ants. And so I don't actually have a YouTube account yet, so I'll probably post that on my social media later. I have to make one. And then I'll probably have to like do some editing and maybe formatting to make sure this video can fit on YouTube, and then we'll go from there. So stay tuned. I will try to post about it on social media within the weekend. Okay. And then almost done with this guy. Cool. So yeah, you can see like my starting out of files is like super nasty. Like this is not very beautiful. But like that's how paintings start. Like it's not gonna be pretty until it's done. At least that's how I feel about this. And then I can see I put these kind of in the wrong place. Just have to scoot them over. Yeah, I definitely don't have a workflow that allows things to be pretty like at halfway points. I used to be worried about it, but now I'm not very worried about it, because like when it's done, it's how I want it to be, and like the process is just getting there. Cool. So back to this table. I don't think I'm gonna do like a design in the wood, because I do want them to be more like cafeteria dining hall tables. But I do like to hide these little details everywhere, because the school is supposed to be super magical and old, and I like to believe if they had magic, they probably like made everything really pretty. It just adds like a little history as well. Yes, I do use PureRef. Also, my follow notifications are behind my webcam. Oh, I just realized that. I can move that. Thanks for letting me know. I just scooted it to the top. That's so cool. I can do that in real time. Technology. People who watch Twitch a lot are probably like this lady. So I'm just kind of trying to think of a good growth direction for the plants. And I need my archways back. So let's see, the horizon line's down here, so we're probably going to be seeing the underside of leaves up here, and you're going to see I kind of start them as circles, and then once I kind of have all my little circles in place of where the leaves are going to go, then I'll start to like go in and add detail and all that stuff. Oh no. There it is. That happens a lot. I don't know what it is about Photoshop. And I also like how pumpkin leaves have this kind of divot, like it's like a little thing, and then all the veins come out like this. So I'm trying to just think about that when I'm drawing them, but I'm not drawing any of the details yet. And this is mostly just for scale too. So I definitely want them to get smaller as they go up and like really push the depth. And then I also, you definitely want to hide some things so that it's not just like a pumpkin, you know? There should be like little overlaps everywhere. I just watched Totoro again. It's so good. Every time I watch it, I'm like, oh, it's just the best. So cute. Yeah, and pumpkin leaves get pretty giant in real life, so I don't feel bad pushing the scale, especially on this magical school where, of course, they have magic fertilizer and like grow crazy pumpkins. And another thing is, like, this is just my placement for 3D, but when I actually go in and draw them, I'm gonna try to come up with better groupings, because when I duplicated these in 3D, it was just like grab a bunch and like move the spheres. See, what inspires me the most? A lot of things. Definitely the natural worlds, like plants and you know, just the fact that plants already look crazy and you don't even have to design them. But also architecture is a big one. Yeah, I really like, I'm just really inspired by architecture anytime I travel or do anything. I'm just warping this. I just realized I was totally ignoring my my 3-point perspective. That makes it look a little more dynamic. I think our brain has the tendency to straighten things out. Like, I'll just notice I start drawing things vertical instead of like things are at a slant. Okay, so I'm gonna try and figure out some good groupings of my pumpkins. I'm gonna try and do like groups of 3, but not perfect groups of 3. Like I'll do like 1, 2, 3, but then like maybe this one is like 1, 2, 3. Pretty much any kind of like odd number makes things look a little more natural. Except this, I just made it super repetitive. So it's like constantly just like a back and forth. I saw in real life, sometimes they put like nets under the hanging pumpkins because they're so heavy, which is pretty cool. But I thought for ease of read, this is like, I'll just leave them. But I do maybe want to have like little lanterns hanging down. Ooh, what does the bottom of a pumpkin look like? Let's Google. I'm saving you from the top search results by hiding the screen. It's wild out there. I feel like I've seen so many like horrible things at work just from the things I've had to Google for work. Just like I've had to Google like the inside of animals' mouths, and it's like not good, guys. It's not good. I'm gonna type in bottom of a pumpkin and hope for the best. Okay, cool. So it's like a weird little belly button, just so everyone knows. I'm gonna kind of stylize it though so that it's not so grainy, if that makes sense. Kind of more like a shapy one. Oh, gross. I saw that comment about the grub. That's the worst. Yeah, I had to do a lot of surfacing on bugs, and I hate some of the bugs close up. It's like, I don't want to know how many hairs are on your body. It's so gross. Some bugs are very cool. Some are really nasty. So yeah, I just want this pumpkin by her head to just be giant, because that's kind of like our scale cue. And then going forward, the viewer will know that like all the pumpkins over here are also giant, because this one by her head is like way too big. And I think what I'll probably do is over here is where I'll do the most, or maybe on this column is where I'll do the most kind of like detailed leaf drawing, because then what I'm going to do is like copy paste little pieces of this area. And so what I want is in space, I want them to wrap around these posts basically. So I want like, I don't want it to just be like leaf, 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 you know, but like actually like how do you show form with leaves? The big pumpkin is the what? It's the scale cue. Like the reference for scale for the rest of the scene. Okay, cool. And then up here, the leaves are gonna be like, we're looking through the underside of them, if that makes sense. Oh, and then another thing I'm doing back here is these are also going to be greenhouses, and they're kind of rotated in 3D, so don't mind the fact that they're like off the perspective grid. They're like kind of like rotated towards us a little bit. So they basically have their own perspective grid, which is just a little bit small, just like a little bit angled more downwards. And I should probably look at reference for these really quick. Oh yeah, when I'm talking about stylizing shapes, I mean, they're talking about like scaling up or scaling down certain components based on you know, if we're trying to push the scale, then I'm making the pumpkins huge. But if I want to stylize like the shape of something, like for example, the bottom of the pumpkin, in real life, it's kind of like a blob. But the way I stylized it was turning it more into like a little like star, basically. Just reading the comments. Okay, cool. So I feel like this kind of architecture with just like a little, just these like big panels and maybe a couple decals is going to be good for the background, because I want it to be really bright and blown out, like you're just getting the like shine on the glass. And then I was also, for laziness factor, gonna put some cypress trees back here. Because why not? They make things look fancy. Plus, I love their silhouette. They're great. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to, now that I've blocked in most of this, and you can see like I don't end up with like a final line drawing before I start painting. I'm just like giving myself little like visual notes of like, don't forget to draw this way later, basically. And then let's see. So now I'm gonna do the architectural frame. And so this is kind of what I mean, like by coming up with little design shortcuts for yourself. Like if I'm drawing an archway, I don't have time to render the column in line, so I'm just like indicating, right? And then like, here's my archway. And then like, that's a column, right? And so like when you're doodling on the go, or you're just like starting a sketch for something, then yeah, it's like really easy to just quickly gesture something in. I think I explained earlier, but the greenhouses are on a different perspective grid because they're just slightly turned in at us. Like, yeah, like they're kind of turned, rotated this way a little bit, just so that things don't feel like, you know how, like if I was doing this, just drawing it, I would be like, okay, we're for sure putting these like this, right? But doing them like this is just kind of like a little bit more organic, because it's like let's say the greenhouses were put somewhere and then they put this dining hall like diagonal to it. It's like a little bit more natural, if that makes sense. I think I'm gonna also make, oh no, on the wrong layer. My life. This is what happens. There we go. I use this like auto select layer thing, so if I ever get lost, I'm just like, okay, I'll just grab the thing and it automatically grabs the layer. Which is pretty much how I navigate my paintings, because I don't name layers. I've never really needed to, because I don't really like ship my files off to someone unless it's like a graphic design thing for VizDev. So yeah, I don't name my layers. Sorry. So I usually end up with like hundreds of layers. And then I was thinking, I really like the kind of like diamond shaped trellis pattern, like this kind of thing. So I think I might incorporate that into these posts. I've mentioned it a couple of times, but I like using Blender the most. I was using Modo, but it's really expensive, and I wouldn't really say it's like an option for students. Like the only reason I could use it in school was if you stole it or if you used it at school. So yeah, those were my only real options. And eventually I switched to Blender because I just didn't want to pay so much money for Modo anymore. It's open source, and so it, you know, people can add their own plugins all the time. So I use Heavy Poly, Von Ling's plugin, and like hotkeys, and it's really nice. I actually really like it. It was a pretty quick transition from Modo to Blender, and then before that I kind of knew Maya a little bit just from having to use it in school. Yeah, so people have been asking like where I went to school and how I started. I went to Otis College, but they don't really have a actual animation program. I actually learned from a couple really good concept art teachers primarily. Like think more live action, like Last of Us and stuff like that. But they were really nice because they understood I had a different style and they would still critique me, which was really helpful. So yeah, despite not having an animation program, I tried to make the most of it, and I just asked a lot of people for advice. And I took a couple of CDA classes outside of college because to be frank, it was not enough. Like I didn't really learn all of the skills I would have needed for being a Vistive artist. Something about the school I went to, they're very into this like Bauhaus method of like everyone's a generalist. So like in early years of my degree, I was having to learn like animation and rigging and stuff in Maya, and even surfacing in Maya, and part of me is like glad that I learned those things, but I also wouldn't pay thousands of dollars to learn those things. I wouldn't say it's worth it. I wouldn't say art college is necessarily the only option, but there's tons of like a la carte options now. Like basically, like you can take schoolism classes or find someone that's offering an online mentorship. Anything like that can be really good. I wouldn't say you need to like specifically go to art college and then like specifically pick animation, because you're going to be taking so many other classes that you don't necessarily want to be in, and it's really expensive. So I would even recommend, like, if you need the school environment, like take figure drawing at a community college, or take art fundamentals at a community college, and then take like highly structured CDA, brainstorm, schoolism, CGMA, all of those like classes that are really specialized. I'd really recommend one of those. And definitely do your research, because those can add up, but it's not like you're stuck in for a whole term. Oh, I forgot I have coffee. So someone asked about background painting. So I don't really do background painting, but I have like a lot of friends that do that full time. I would say being really good and fast at color and being able to mimic a style is really important, but let's see. I'm trying to think of people who do it really well. Jessica Kleinman is one of my friends who's really good at background painting. Pablo Leon, he's really good as well. They're both really good. They do like, they're really good at painting, but they also do designs, and I think that's kind of that's a good thing to have in case you want to do both design and painting. But to be honest, like, I don't know the most about that skill set. I feel like you have to be a lot more organized, which I am not in my layers. And I know there's like a whole process of doing like flats first and then doing the lighting as its own like lighting layers so that you can change the lighting of the scene, which is really cool. I'm so disorganized that I don't know if I am cut out for that. But let me know if that was enough information. Otherwise, I can try and direct you to the right people. And so on this trellis, I definitely want some leafy overlap. Maybe even like we have some hanging. Yeah, I think that'd be good. I like this like overgrown kind of feeling. So there would be just a couple little areas that break the silhouette because the pumpkins are hanging down. And then what I'm gonna try to do is, so I don't bore you with the nitty-gritty of me literally sitting here and painting the silhouettes of everything, I'll probably do that off stream, and then have it ready tomorrow to just go in and start rendering. And oh, these are great resources. Thank you for sharing all the classes and stuff. I'm kind of out of touch because I haven't taken a class in a while, but I know, oh, you know who's amazing? Let's see, she goes by Ango the Mango, and I know she has some classes up, but I don't know what the website is. Angela. Maybe someone would be able to link her really awesome mentorship on background painting. I was just remembering that. Angela Sung, thank you. I know, I get so used to everyone's like usernames. But yeah, Angela Sung has an amazing background painting mentorship. I would really recommend it. I also know lots of VizDev people that have taken her class and learned a lot about just color, lighting, composition, all that. Yeah, so many happy so many happy class takers. I love it. Yeah, so somebody asked about my journey from university to job. So when I was in school, I was also freelancing. I freelanced for a game studio, and I also did some freelance for the Welcome to Monster High movie with Axis Animation. So I was trying to like work on just basically anything I could get my hands on, just to like know what having a job was like, because school drastically did not prepare me for that. And like just the responsibilities of being at a job, like it's so different from school. It's like not like you're not trying to make the best piece to get hired. You're trying to make the best piece for the 3D modelers or for you know, the director that's looking at it. So yeah, I feel like it really didn't prepare me for that. Also didn't really prepare me for like networking. I kind of just did that on my own, by making friends with people just naturally, like not like going up to someone and being like, can I get a job? But like, you know, just like making friends with people that you trust and like respect your journey as like a newcomer artist, and like just find people like that who are really welcoming. Like for example, I've only been in the industry for a couple years, so it's like whenever I see someone in school that's struggling, it's like I really want to help them, because there's often like such a little, there's like an inch that they need more to get the job, and sometimes it's just like that final nudge in the right direction. So yeah, definitely finding younger industry professionals or older that are just more welcoming, that you can trust. Yeah, and people who will be honest with you about your work and why your portfolio is or isn't there yet. And even just having someone to be like, oh, your portfolio is great, but you really need to have prop designs, or you really need to have work in this style, or that kind of thing is really helpful. So yeah, on that note, I got a job at RealFX by doing a CTN portfolio review. I know, it's like shock, right? But yeah, I did one of those, and then I also had a secondary recommendation from another friend, and I guess that was kind of enough to get hired as a junior. But it was a huge struggle. I was like definitely still learning and like, you know, fresh out of school. But yeah, I found out I got that job in like February of my last year of school, but then something happened with the project and they basically had to rewrite the script. And so after school, I was still kind of like stranded without work for a few months until they were able to hire me. So that was super scary, but I freelanced for, I mostly got freelance like through ArtStation and stuff like that. And I would, I don't think at that time I was ever posting anything like, hey, I'm looking for work, but it was kind of a good way to, like, ArtStation kind of helped me get any kind of like little freelance gigs. Someone asked how I study. Good question. When I was starting out, I did a lot of gouache painting, like a lot of landscape gouache painting. That was really helpful for just like building a library of color palettes in my mind. I'm gonna Google someone with their hand on their cheek. One moment. Advice for portfolio on ArtStation. Good question. I feel like big color paintings tend to do better, and then maybe under that color painting have call outs of props and things. Because whenever I've tried to just post like a page of props, it like usually doesn't do so well. But if you do like, you know, a nice color painting and then do a couple props to go along with it, it's a really good way of having like, look, I did this little IP and it's got props and a whole painting and like maybe some characters. Yeah, that can be really good. And like the main reason people like ArtStation is just because it's like all in one place. Like all the layouts of everyone's website pretty much looks the same, and it's like a really easy format. That's actually like my portfolio review at RealFX was through ArtStation, like on my phone. Like really really bad, very taboo according to art school, but it works. Like they could see the stuff. It was fine. I have a website now, a Squarespace, and that's also like really nice and organized. What is this called when somebody does this? Resting head on chin? This is my life, like figuring out weird phrases to Google for reference, especially for poses. Oh yeah, so somebody asked about being an international artist. That's probably like my only caveat to like you don't need to go to art school is if you are international, it's so hard to get a job in the US without a degree. It's really silly. It doesn't make sense. They really look at a degree like of 4 years as more than like 6 years of experience. It's beyond me, and I hope things change. But yeah, I think having a degree, especially like in the US, is a really good in if you're international. But yeah, of course, it's like it comes with its whole set of, you know, expenses and things like that. Here we go. Love a stock photo. Wonderful. We got stock photos galore. See, normally, sometimes I just like physically do the pose and then I take a picture of it. I've even had my boyfriend take pictures of me like casting a magic spell for a book cover, which is always embarrassing. But yeah, there's lots of ways to do it if you're doing posing. There's a lot better posing websites out there too, but I'm being lazy. Ooh, how did I learn to draw clothes and costumes? That's a good one. Especially I've been doing some outfit design at work, but the big one is reference. Like I would say like, especially if you're looking for, let's say, modern high schooler clothes, like how exactly do you research that? I use Pinterest a lot, and then I try to look for like websites or hashtags that like clothing might be under, like outfit of the day, or back to school clothing is good. That's a good search term. Even figuring out like what are the best clothing companies and like searching adjacent styles. That's really good. The main way I learned to draw them though was definitely I did a lot of figure drawing in school, and even going to, if you have any museums of fashion, like LA is amazing for that. We had a whole Hollywood art exhibit for all the costumes over time, including like the modern Avengers costumes, but also like this crazy dress from Cleopatra from like the 60s, I think, 20s. I don't know history very well, but I would sketch those a lot, and that was really good for learning fabric and cuts and things like that. And just like drapery, that's like really helpful to know about. Yeah, what somebody said about the degree requirement being more of a visa thing is so true. It's like jobs, my degree is sitting in my filing cabinet getting nothing done, and nobody's ever going to ask for it at a job, but it's for getting a visa mostly. Yeah, I think could you probably go to a like community college and maybe do the 4 years there, but maybe just do supplemental classes the whole time and kind of phone it in? I'm not sure. I'm probably not the best person to ask, but I do have lots of friends I can direct you to if you need help. Forward pose is what someone said to type in. That's a lot of clip art. Oh man. But yeah, like I said, I'll probably redraw her like a bazillion times, especially since she's like the focal point. Now I'm like, maybe I want her shoulder more up on this side. Yeah. Are there options to freelance? Yes, absolutely, especially with COVID and like things are even changing at Netflix. I'm really hoping to see things open up for remote work more often, just because it would be nice to not live in LA forever or expect everyone to live in LA. It's like the cost of living here is insane. So I think her head needs to be more down, so it's like kind of squished under her hand. Yeah. Degrees definitely don't matter for getting a job. It's just really a visa thing. No one has ever asked for my degree in any job I've been at. But the thing is, I didn't know that in high school. You know, I just think it's really like because of the internet and people can like actually talk about this and be like, hey, like I went to art school and like I don't recommend it. Like now people can just be more honest about it, and like I'm hoping high schoolers now don't feel so pressed to just go to a 4-year because they feel like they have to. So yeah, I think more tilted too for her face. And so I kind of, this is like a Grizz and Norm technique that I learned. They have a great Instagram. I really recommend following them for just like stylized character tips and costuming. Very good for costuming. They always have, they often do like all of the different types of skirt cuts or like all the different types of boots you can get. Yeah, it's really cool. So I really recommend following them. But they kind of describe this like eye area as like a superhero mask. And that kind of helped me really think about the face a little bit better. So you don't get like, you know, flounder eyes where you're like drawing one eye here and then one eye here, you know? But yeah. Oh, Grizz and Norm. Here, I can type it in the chat. Or I can actually draw it. Grizz and Norm. Yeah, super good stuff for costuming, character design, you name it. And then I'm even thinking of things like, is it more anxious looking to have your hand like this or like this, you know? These are all things that I can absolutely tweak as I go on to my heart's content, and I will. Yeah, I think posing is really important. It's definitely something I overlooked in my student work, just like gesture and stuff. But now that I'm writing a graphic novel and the whole thing is going to be characters galore, I'm like getting ready. Oh yeah, I totally agree with that comment about getting an education. Like, I don't think anyone is really self-taught just because they didn't go to college. Like, there's still things you're having to do to learn. Even if it's YouTube videos, like that's, you know, that's still you're learning from someone. That's still a good way to learn. Trying to remember how I learned to digital paint, because it didn't just come to me. Let's just say that. I think I watched, I remember watching some YouTube tutorials about it, but I can't remember the names anymore. How was it to work on Scoob? It was really fun. Yeah, it was my first movie, so I like didn't know anything. It was great. And my team is really nice and like really understanding of where I was in my work. And it was all like blue sky. So I was pretty much getting to do story beats like this pretty much all the time, which is fun. Just doing the old mitten hand, you know, little claw. And then from this little superhero mask that I've given her, I'm kind of deciding where I want the lower eyelids to go. And then I think I want her to be like yeah, she's got this book here, but she's definitely looking at like her peers because she's sad and lonely. And then I try and think of the eyelid as like, these brushes are so great for it because it's like you can really think of the eyelid as like a disc almost. You know, like it's got a thickness. And with pupils, it's just troubleshooting. It's like drawing them and then zooming out to make sure she's actually looking at the thing you thought she was looking at. It's just how it is. Also, thank you everyone for joining. This is such a great turnout. Dang. I'm very shocked. I've never Twitch streamed before. Thank you. I hope everyone's enjoying Lightbox. I haven't really gotten a chance to browse the floor yet because I've been painting, but definitely going to do that once the stream is over. Also, I think I'm going to consolidate these layers because they're bothering me. But turn that one down. I'm going to merge these. Cool. Let's see. Okay. I know, I wish I could play music, but somebody told me you can't put it on YouTube later if there's music. Otherwise, probably do a Ghibli soundtrack. It's usually the best magical academy painting music. Back to looking at reference. This greenhouse. I'm trying to decide if I want like a, I don't know the term for it. They used to tell you, I played The Sims and there was a name for it when the roof does this, but I don't know the name. Gable? Not sure. Yes, I use Blender for 3D with the Heavy Poly configs by Von Ling. It's a really good little modification, but it does change your hotkeys, so just be aware. But they are very artist-friendly hotkeys, so. This is great because you get to see in real time how a lot of my job is Googling, which is literally my life. But it's great because, you know, especially because movies are so CG, it's like you really need to use some good photo reference for things, and our 3D modelers especially like appreciate it when you actually send like the exact photo of what you want. So kind of perfected the art of the Google search. And DuckDuckGo really helps because you can, like, if you look up sky on Google, you're gonna get like all of the stock photos of a sky, like the super overexposed ones and like the really saturated ones. So I like using DuckDuckGo because it just gives you like, I don't know, these are all like residential greenhouses, but let's look up a conservatory. These are amazing. Let's just peruse Pinterest together. Yeah, wow, love it. Basically what I'm looking for, this is kind of nice. Just like a nice roof configuration. I don't want something too complex because it's just the background, but this is kind of nice too. Okay. Yeah, I think I want like a stair-stepped roof of some kind. So, yeah, like I said, I don't listen to the 3D too much when I make it. I just make it for perspective mostly, and then I change it. And just in case anyone's wondering, yes, the building is on a different perspective grid. It is slightly turned so that it doesn't look too static. Like in real life, not everything would actually be built on the perspective grid. Like, so I make things kind of like just a little off kilter. Even all of the tables, you can't tell, but when I did it in Blender, I made sure, like from an aerial view, that they're like this, you know, like kind of jagged. Also, I appreciate the people that are so fast sending links to other people. Y'all are great. It's like a bunch of little helpers. Yeah, so the one thing I'm noticing is this does look a little weird when it's off perspective just because I've changed it now, but that's okay. I can always, literally what I can do is go into 3D and just quickly add like a different roof shape. And then I have this camera angle is like set in stone. I have the camera locked, and so I can just open up the file and like change the, change whatever I want and then go back in and save it out, and only this will have changed. Which is really nice. Also, if you're using Blender, just make sure to know about the Dynamic Sky plugin, because it's kind of like a cheat HDRI. It's really awesome. You can basically add in a sun and like a fake sky and even like little fake clouds and stuff right before rendering. And then I think what I'm gonna do is I like it when buildings have like a little top third or like bottom third of detail. So this is where the detail is gonna be, in the little band here. And then I just kind of like, when I'm drawing on top of 3D, I'm like thinking about the floor plans of things, and then I'll go in and like extrude them, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to like use 3D in my brain as well when I'm drawing. Yeah. So like I kind of X-ray draw through things and then just like erase it. Trying to decide if I want these to be like a cone, or an arch. I feel like an arch. Oh no, Photoshop. Yeah, I think an arch would be good to just match what we have, the big circular shape we have here. And then, do y'all know the trick of if you draw a X through a box, it gives you the center? I don't know, that's a fun one. I learned it in like early college. It only sort of gave me the middle correctly, but in theory it's supposed to work, I promise. And then sometimes what I do is like I'll doodle this in, but then I'll go actually block it into 3D really quick. Just to be like, oh, how does this work? But I'm thinking it's like octagonal, like not octagonal, but like faceted here. And then there's like a door here. And then when I'm drawing lines like this on stuff, I like to draw every other line and then go in and fill the rest. So you don't, I don't know, your brain kind of gets ahead of yourself if you try to do like every line like this, they'll start to get uneven. But if you do like every other line, you can be very in control of the spacing, if that makes sense. Another thing I like from these is that the rim just underneath the gabled roof is like, it like sticks out a little bit further. So I'm definitely going to incorporate that. Maybe do like a funky trim. And as you can see, this little like turd pile that I just drew on this corner, that little squiggle indicates like there's gonna be some filigree there one day. And that's kind of how I sketch or get started with architecture, is just like indicating little things for myself. Like this might be a railing, so I'm gonna like, and then this thick line is just to indicate that it's supposed to stick out. Oh yeah, I use a Cintiq. It's a, I think 24 HD is the one. I really like it because it's got all 8 buttons on the side, and I have them all hotkeyed. Like if you've been seeing this pop up, or I use the radial menu. So like I have transform, fill, enter, grayscale, which turns my painting grayscale, levels, hue sat, hide, which like hides your lasso tool and stuff. Yeah. That's been really helpful for me because it keeps me off my keyboard when I'm working. Unless I'm doing like some heavy like photo texturing of something, then I'm pretty much on my keyboard. But yeah, if I'm painting or drawing, it's all, I like to just stay up here and not have to like type while I'm doing this. Yeah, it makes things kind of convenient. Now I'm feeling like I want a triangle again. Sorry for the back and forth, but you know, that's the process. Part of me is like, maybe they're too tall altogether. I got really bold with these. So I might even be reworking them all together. I love that. A cone is the arch of triangles. Yes, absolutely. I do kind of like the cone shape, like the kind of like magical fairy castle looking ones. I'm just wondering how to go about I guess it doesn't matter too much if like we see the door because there's all these people blocking it, so you know, who cares? And because this is a fantasy world, I'm thinking about architecture enough to make it look realistic, but not enough that like you know, you probably wouldn't build a giant palace out of glass, but we're doing that because we can. And then I just try to add like little tertiary details to make it look like it makes sense. Like I wouldn't do a giant glass panel like this, but I would like break it up just a little bit. And then I think this is where I want the, yeah. This is where I'm gonna put the like design, and it'll just be something like simple. Let's see, internships and training positions. I know Disney usually has them. Netflix had one for a bit, but they recently took it down just to like redo the wording. Hopefully that one, I'm not actually sure when it's going to be re-announced, but they did fix the wording, and it's a little more clear and specific now. Yeah. So I hope that helps. I would also recommend seeing if you can find like entry-level biz dev positions, because I find that a lot of people like could totally skip the like training internship section and just go straight into work, but it just depends. I really wish there were more of them too, because I feel like so many people could just be in the industry, but they just need that like little nudge in the right direction. Yeah, it's hard. I think that about that amount of panels is enough to make it feel realistic from far away. But like I said, that area is going to be super blobby and kind of covered up by trees because I can. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with using trees to cover things up. Except maybe on a job, and if you don't have the trees like in your asset library, then that's, that's its own thing. But cool. All right, so I've pretty much got most of the line drawing done, and then what I was gonna do is probably take a break and finish this, like finish the block in and try and block all of the shapes in. And then I will be back tomorrow at 10 a.m. If you guys have any questions, I would be happy to answer them in the next couple minutes too. What's the usual expectation deadline for a big painting? At work, this would probably take me like 5 full work days, pending notes. Yeah, usually because it's like, a full 8 hours a day. It's like a lot of time to get your brain really in the zone and like work on one painting. I would say like when it's personal work, it's a little harder because I'm only able to commit like a couple hours each night. So it's like, that starting up process, like you got to take into account how much time it takes to like get in the zone again. And yeah, so it takes me like a few months, it feels like, to finish these personal paintings, but it's really probably like a couple hours here and there every night. So yeah. No, you definitely don't need to use 3D to be in VizDev. The reason I like it is because so often I've worked directly like with the 3D modelers, and so I like to be given a set that's been done in previz already, and then kind of draw over it, because that's a lot of times we have to do that. Like previz will figure out where like let's say the placement of a bed and a dresser is, and then you'll actually need to design like what that looks like. And so sometimes it's nice to just like get a couple screenshots of the object or the room or architecture and then draw over it basically. So because of that, I've just kind of been using a lot more 3D in my work. Yeah, because it's like people don't realize like how much of a pain it can be to draw over 3D, because like you're staring at this really sterile, like rigid scene, and yeah, it can be like really hard to turn that into something like magical and VizDev-y. But yeah, it's very helpful to use 3D. And also I am kind of a cheat and I don't know perspective very well, so that's the truth. Yeah. Stardew Valley stream. Oh my god, I wish they have new updates. Maybe Ooblets. I've also been playing that. It's really fun. How do you stop yourself from overthinking? That's hard. I would say if you're overthinking, send it to a friend and voice your concerns and be like, what's wrong with this and why am I seeing it that way? That can get you out of a nice slump. But other than that, I would say like don't be afraid to call something done and just like move on to the next painting. Like you don't have to like polish things forever if you don't want to. I like to polish my personal work, but I definitely, that last like 10% of the painting is such a slog. It's like, is it done yet? Like, can I post it? But like, if you try and get out of your brain that it's like, it's not for social media, it's for your portfolio. And like, you know, sometimes a study can be just as beneficial as like a full personal painting. And then sometimes people on social media like a study more than your full painting. So then that's a whole, like, try not to think about that. It's just like, there's like psychology behind why people gravitate towards what they gravitate towards. So yeah. Oh yeah, I should definitely, here, let me show my Scoob art really quick. Or actually, I'll show you what I use to get my job at Scoob. Okay, let's start at the bottom. So these are kind of just color studies I was doing, just like style tests. One more painterly and like one more graphic, I guess. Yeah, these were also while I was working at Scoob. Oh, except this one. This one I did more recently. So this was one of my first digital paintings. Not my first though, like by any means. But like one of the first ones that I like ever put on ArtStation or anything. And I made this whole house in 3D. It was like a class assignment to build something. And so I was like, you know, I'm going to kill two birds with one stone, and I'm going to build this house for my 3D class, but then I'm going to paint the scene for another class. And yeah, and that was with Aton. And so he really helped me like push this to a more, like a happy balance between more stylized and more photo-y. And so there's just like a little bits of photos and stuff in here. But a lot of times it's like I'm using the photo for some information and then like stylizing a lot of it. Okay, this one was like my first like 3D plus Photoshop illustration. Looking at it now, it's like there's so many things I could have done so much faster. The main thing was like how long things took me has like greatly decreased since then. Like this took me months to do even in school. And I was doing a lot of gouache painting, like someone said. So I kind of understood rendering, but I didn't understand how to translate that to digital very well. So a part of it too, at the time I was using some really realistic, like photo-bashy brushes. And so I was really struggling getting those to work for me. Eventually brush technology got a lot better, and I also kind of learned how to edit them. So same with this one, like the fundamentals I learned from traditional painting, all the things like composition and like, you know, if you did this traditionally, it's still just like a dark slope with a girl and then a bunch of sticks. So it's like you could absolutely do this traditionally. But a big thing here was like I learned how to cut like the dark shapes out of a photo. So I found like photos of sticks and like burned woods and stuff, and I cut out silhouettes and then I warped them. And the fire was like a whole thing of like learning how to paint fire. I had a ton of people look at it because I was in school doing this. I had Aton look at it. I had George Fuentes look at it. George helps me add more atmospheric lighting on this side. So I added like all these little atmospheric lights to the trees. And then Aton was all about like getting the shapes pointing this way. Yeah. And then the fire painting was like a breakthrough for me because I realized the middle of fire is not yellow, it's like lime green. And it was so much just like push and pull and practice, and I had a huge community of people behind me helping me and like hyping me up, which is one of the nice things about school, is just having people around you. Yeah. And then so this was my first kind of like IP that I did. First I did this like little witch IP. Obviously I like little witches and magic and things. So this one was kind of inspired by this really cool composition of it's like the first movie of Harry Potter walking into the wand shop. I really liked that composition, and I wanted to do something really similar. So this one I built in 3D. I built all the cabinets, and then I basically, a lot of times I'm building like the shell of a scene in 3D, and then I just fill it with objects. You know, like I build the frame of a bedroom, and I put the bed in and like a trunk and like a couple desks, and then using that as my perspective, I paint all over it. So yeah, this one too was really 3D heavy. Yeah, I built this whole room in 3D, and then I painted on top. Same with this one. This one I just wanted to try like a layout drawing, and then to kind of spruce it up, I just added a couple color flats. For these, I actually used Maya or Modo, depending. I was still in school learning Maya for animation and stuff, and so I was like, okay, I have these skills, might as well like use them for stuff. And also I don't know how I missed this class, but there was like a perspective class that I did not go to, and so I just relied on 3D for most of my portfolio. And like we had basic perspective, like 2-point and stuff, but I wasn't good at like 3-point or coming up with perspectives on my own and things like that. And so I used 3D. I got used to looking at those camera angles, and now I feel like I understand perspective mostly because of that, and also form. Yeah, just even like moving objects around in 3D space, your brain starts to get used to like seeing objects from different sides and like what that looks like. So it's all about like just building language in your brain. So this is what I was talking about with, I did a Great Gatsby project where I like designed all the architecture. Yeah, these are all orthographic, like I said, so they look complex, but it's like I'm not thinking about perspective. I was just thinking about like silhouette, shape. When I'm talking about stylizing things, like these are real places. Like this is, I think, the Vanderbilt mansion or something like that. These are all based on real buildings. And then the way I stylized them was like, okay, let's make this roof insane. Or like, let's make this one wonky and like push everything to be a little wider at the top. And then this one was like, okay, let's push how like stoic and like, I don't know, ominous, imposing this building is. So I just made it like really straight up and down and like really faceted. And then after that, I have worked on so many Art Deco movies since then that I'm actually really glad I did this project because it kind of taught me a lot about Art Deco shape language. Yeah, this was another painting I did, mostly in 3D. I think I did this staircase, and then I did a big plane of water, and then I did like a tiny little hill made of a sphere, and then an indication of this mansion. And so if you read The Great Gatsby, this is like the green light scene, the famous. You can also tell when I built this staircase in 3D, it was like insanity. Like it was just such a mess. Like I had no idea how to use 3D very well, and so I was like hand duplicating every stair. Oh my god, so much. Yeah, this one I think I used 3D for, but so minimal. Like seriously, I'm talking about like, think of like a kid putting building blocks together, and that's me. Like mashing two spheres together and then putting like, I don't know, an archway in the back. This one was a little more intense with the 3D though. This one I actually built all of the bookshelves. Not the books though. The books I just copy pasted everywhere. But yeah, I built all the bookshelves. I built the banister, but you can see that's just like one piece, a peg thingy, and then just duplicating this. Yeah, it's hard for me to lay down like a pathway. You know, I would say I'm kind of showing what I had to get hired, because I feel like it's a good way to know what to shoot for, of like, okay, I should work on having a few architectural drawings, and I should work on having some props. And then one big thing is like when I was a student, I looked at a lot of Disney art books and like DreamWorks art of How to Train Your Dragon. And then I would look through and be like, okay, it looks like to make a movie, you need all of these things. Like, prop designs and all these things. So I kind of copied that as like, this is what I need to get hired. Not copy the style, but just like what kind of content is needed. And that helped me a lot. And then also keeping current, because like I started by looking at the Tangled art books, and they had a really different process for that movie. So it's not necessarily it's not necessarily relevant to like how people work now. Like, so you might get more luck from like the How to Train Your Dragon 3 art book, or any like movies as they come out, basically. Yeah, I hope that helps. Well, it is 12 and I gotta head out, but thank you all for coming, and I will be back tomorrow morning. Bye, everyone.